All right, heroes, we're back. This is where it gets really, really nasty, and this is where it gets really, really fun for me. What we just talked about in the last episode is the concept of cutting our losses. And again, conventional wisdom will say that cutting your losses and letting your winners run is the right way to go, right? And statistically, we kind of just proved that that's not a great idea. And one of the ways we can see that is we found out that the chances of a stock touching a certain price in any expiration cycle are two times the delta. So the example we just did with Warren Buffett is, let me just pull this up so it makes it look right. He says a 5% stop loss is what you should go. Remember, you never want to lose money and you always want to cut your winners and let them run. So a 5% stop loss would be triggered if the stock ever got to 231.94 right here. Again, it's 5% lower. So let's go to that strike, which is we can agree is the 232 strike. Right here, it's highlighted right here. So we put a stop loss at 232. So when SPY, according to Warren Buffett and conventional wisdom, when SPY gets down to 232, we want to have it triggered a stop loss. So real quick, guys, what are the chances that SPY in 125 days is below 232? 29%, right? But what are the chances it touches 232 at some point in this expiration cycle? At some point in this expiration cycle, which is 125 days. What are the chances it touches it? Well, 2 times delta. 2 times delta is 29 times 2 or 58. So there's a 58% chance that we get stopped out on this trade in the next 125 days. That means that not only is there a 58% chance that we lose money, even worse, there's a 58% chance that we lose 5%. And that's a pretty big chunk size. We shouldn't have to experience those types of losses. So again, stop loss is no bueno. It's absolutely no bueno. And again, the example that we just showed was how stop losses are no good, especially if you're more of a long-term investor. There was a 58% chance that you get stopped out if you place this trade on right now. If you bought SPY right now and followed what Warren Buffett said, which again is cut your losses and let your winners run, 5% stop losses, you would be stopped out at a 5% loss 58% of the time. Not lose a penny, not lose 1%, not lose 2%, not lose 3%, but lose 5% 58% of the time. Who the hell would sign up for that? But we're not really interested in buying stock outright. If you remember, one of the trades that we've been talking about is this whole concept of betting on the expected move to overstate the actual move, right? So let's see how that works. We want to do a study here for you guys. And we want to show, because again, we're not interested in buying and selling stock, remember, because that's a 50-50 bet. And a rule of thumb, we can never place 50-50 bets. All of our bets and trades have to have expectations of being profitable better than 50% of the time. So what we want to do is, how can we see if a stop loss is an effective strategy on this bet that just has to do with betting that the expected move is going to be greater than the actual move? And again, it's just betting that options are overpriced. And we've already shown that that is profitable, but maybe it's a more profitable endeavor if we cut our losses and let our winners run. So let's see what that looks like here. So we did the same study, same data points, 1990 to present. So that's 6,500 plus occurrence in SPY. Again, SPY is the most liquid product in the world, so all these probabilities that we're going off of are the most accurate in SPY because, again, the most liquidity, the most participation, the more perfect the pricing is. So what we do is every single day, we sold a 16 delta call and a 16 delta put, which, again, all it is a bet that the expected move is going to be greater than the actual move, right? Conventional wisdom says you're going to be right 68% of the time here. And we did it in the closest monthly expiration cycle to 50 days of executing the trade, right? So what we did was we did two things. The first thing we did was we just let the trade expire. So imagine that this expiration cycle was 50 days away. We sold the 16 delta put, which is the 231 strike, and the 16 delta call. So there is no 16 delta call. The 17 delta call is close enough. So we sold this strangle and just let it expire. So that's the first thing we did. We just let it expire. Now what we also did was we also placed a stop loss at 2 times the loss of the credit we received, right? So this is our effort to say, hey, maybe cutting our losses and letting our winners run is the right way to go here. So the way we did that is the following. Remember, if the value of the trade, or which again is nothing more than a bet that the expected move is greater than the actual move, ever got to be 2 times the value of what we received in credit, we would exit. So when you sell an option, you collect a credit for doing so. And in this case, this specific trade, we collected $1.76 in credit. So what we want to do is we want to put a stop loss at 2 times the amount of credit. So if the value of this 250 call and 231 put ever got to 321, again, right now the value is $1.76, but if it ever got to 321, we would, cut our losses, we would buy back the trade, and that would be it, right? So this is just an example and a way to show if cutting your losses on the bet, just on the bet, that the expected move is greater than the actual move is maybe a more profitable strategy. So let's check out the results. So the results are pretty telling, but I want to start from the left. It's really, really important to hammer this home. The first column is conventional wisdom. Selling a 16 delta call and a 16 delta put is supposed to make us profitable 68% of the time. The reason for that is because price movements are random, and price movements, if price movements are random, they fall within a normal distribution curve. That says 68% of the time, prices will fall within the expected move or one standard deviation. However, we know that's no good because we know that the expected move, which is what options are priced off of, is overstated to the actual move. Remember, implied volatility or the expected move is what options get their price off of. Realized volatility or the actual move is how they settle, right? So again, we're supposed to, in quotes, supposed to be right 68.2% of the time. We're right. That's the expected outcome for $0 because, again, conventional wisdom says it's a zero-sum game. One party makes money, the other party loses money. It all comes out in the wash. Well, if we let the trade expire, as you guys know, the expected move is greater than the actual move about 80% of the time. So placing this trade, which again, don't get crazy into it just yet. It's just a bet that the expected move is going to be greater than the actual move, which we know to be true, right? We're right 81% of the time for about $41 per trade. Now, however, if we added in the stop loss, which again, if we collect a credit of $1.76, when the value of those two options gets to $3.52 at some point, we would buy it back. Remember, we want to cut our losses. And if it never got to the value of $3.52, we would just let it expire. That's all we would do, right? And it turned out we were right 74% of the time, which is still better than conventional wisdom. However, we make about 25% less money when we have our stop loss, and that's no good. 25% less profits is a big deal, especially when you guys, which you will, start to deal with some real big numbers. So in the bet, again, the strangle, the one standard deviation expected move strangle, all it is selling a 16 delta call and a 16 delta put, just as a way to make a bet that the expected move is going to be greater than the actual move, right? And again, conventional wisdom is you're going to be right 68% of the time for $0. We're right 81% of the time for $41. And then we took it a step further because Warren Buffett and the likes of financial media says you got to cut your losses. You can't handle any losses. You have to cut your losses and let your winners run. Well, that's bullshit. What we did was we bought back this strangle for 100% or double the credit we received. So again, the credit we received is $1.76. If it ever got to $3.52, we buy it back. We made 25% less money. That's a big deal. So the truth is, if placing a stop loss makes us less money, well, what do we do then? We have to be able to manage our trades and our investments somehow. So I'm going to pause you guys here for a second. What you're about to see will change you. If nothing has really changed your opinion on the stock market beforehand, this is what's going to do it. This is what makes it so crazy. This is how you become a millionaire. This is how you become a money manager if you want. You want to buy that house for your parents? This is how you're going to do it. You want to be able to pay for your kids to go to college, the best college? This is how you're going to be able to do it. You want to be able to take that vacation, not have to worry about anything? This is how you're going to do it. The stuff that we're going to talk about for the rest of this lesson is exactly how you're going to do it. If buying back, if putting in a stop loss is quote unquote the way to go, but not really here. So in effect, if putting in a stop loss here makes us 25% less money, what if we just like did the opposite? What if we just did the opposite? So this is where it gets really nasty, guys. So we did another study, and these studies take me for freaking ever, by the way. Just, I'm venting, but these studies take for freaking ever. So from 1990 to present, again, 6,500 occurrences in SPY. SPY, the most participation, the most competition, the best prices. Every single day, we sold a 16 delta call and a 16 delta put in the monthly expiration cycle closest to 50 days from when we executed the trade. And again, the reason we do that is because that's just a bet that the expected move is going to be greater than the actual move. And as we know, that happens about 80% of the time. Thus, options are slightly overpriced. So we did a few things here. The first thing we did was we let the trade expire. Right? So the first thing we did was we put this trade on right here. Again, 16 delta call, 16 delta put, and let it expire. Right? So that's the first thing we did. The second thing we did was we placed a stop loss at 2 times the credit. So again, if the value ever got to 352, we would buy it back. Now we did the complete opposite, just because we want to see what the hell that even looks like. Because a stop loss doesn't work, what if we bought back this trade, which again is nothing more than a bet on the expected move being overstated to the actual move, which we know is true. But what if we purchase back this trade for 50% of the credit? So now, rather than waiting for it to get to 352, what if it got to 88 cents? Then we'll buy it back. And if it never got to 88 cents, we'll just let it expire and add in the numbers there. So the difference is, on one hand, we're going to put a stop loss in. So if it ever gets to 2 times the loss, we're going to buy it back because, quote unquote, we want to cut our losses and let our winners run. The opposite is what we're looking to do now just to see if it works, which is the complete opposite of conventional wisdom. If we're buying it back for 50%, we're saying cut your winners and let your losers run. So this is very, very interesting. We want to see how that works. And we're going to add another calculation here because this becomes very, very important. So not only are we going to calculate the numbers that we have been, which were percent winners and P&L per trade, but now we're going to start calculating some more, which will include how many days we were in the trade and how much money we made per day. So hold on to your seatbelt, guys. This rabbit hole just got way freaking deeper. Here are the results. Slow down, hold your pants, relax. We're going to go from left to right like we always do for these things. So the first column is obviously the conventional wisdom. The expected outcome is if you sell a 16 delta call and a 16 delta put, you're going to be right 68% of the time. It's a zero-sum game, so you're going to make no money. The average length of this trade is 50 days, so the average P&L per day is $0. Again, that's conventional wisdom. However, we know that options are priced off the expected move, and the expected move overstates the actual move about 80% of the time. So if we place this trade and let it expire and don't do anything, we're right about 81% of the time, right? We make about $41 per trade, and we're also just letting this expire at 50 days, so we made about 82 cents per trade. Excuse me, per day. That's pretty damn good. Now, what if we place the stop loss? Again, the stop loss is we collect a credit of $1.76. If the value of that trade, which again is the 250 call and the 231 put, ever got to double the value, the credit we received, which in this case is $1.76, we would buy it back. That is, cutting your losses and letting your winners run. You're still right more than you're supposed to at about 74%. You make about 31 bucks a day, and you're holding this trade a little bit less because a fair amount of times you're in the trade less, let's say 25 days to actually get to your stop loss point. So you're in it less time, but you make about 58 cents per day. So again, better than the conventional wisdom and the expected outcome, not as good as just not touching it. But then if we want to buy back our winners, which again, in this example, we collected $1.76, we want to buy it back when it's 88 cents. And if it never gets to 88 cents, we're just going to let it expire. So when we're looking to buy it back for 50%, we're right 90% of the time for $25 per trade, which again is less than the 2 other options. However, we were only in the trade on average 19 days, and we made about $1.32 per day. So now it gets interesting. The things to look at now are the percent winners and the P&L per day. if my money's out there, I want it to be making the most amount of money possible per day. I mean, that makes a lot of sense, right? Again, it's about 2.5 times better than just putting in a stop loss managing winners. How amazing is that? How amazing is that? But I want you guys, we're going to do you even better. I want you guys to go back a couple lessons and think about it. We talked about how options are overpriced because the expected move is greater than the actual move. We also found out in previous lessons that if the expected move is greater than average, it comes back down to its average 4 times faster than if it's below. So the way to think about it then, again, if options are priced off the expected move, when the expected move is greater than average, it takes options 4 times faster to come back to their average when the expected move is greater than average. And when we make this trade, we're selling these options. We want the stock to finish between our trades. Again, that would mean we want the stock to finish between 250 and 231. We want both of these options to be out of the money come expiration, which means we want the stock to be below 250 and also at the same time above 231 34 days from now. So that's what we're looking to do there on this, right? So again, if it's greater than average, though, the expected move, the value of the options decrease and decrease at a much more rapid rate than otherwise. So what if we tested it out where we had this concept of buying back our winners, which again is completely opposite of what conventional wisdom is. Conventional wisdom is cut your losses, let your winners run. But we're saying is cut your winners and let your losses run. And on this strategy, which again is just a bet that the expected move is going to be greater than the actual move, on this strategy, we are just proving exactly that that works. Sorry, I had to cut out of the video there for a second. But again, we were talking about what if we managed our winners when volatility or the expected move was greater than average. So we did another study, and this one took me even longer, but it's okay because it's really, really important. So again, what did we do? From 1990 to present, so 6,500 occurrences in SPY. Every single day we sold a 16 delta call and a 16 delta put in the monthly expiration cycle that's closest to 50 days away. And again, the reason we did that was just because, again, it's just a bet that the expected move is going to be greater than the actual move. And the reason is for that because options are priced off the expected move. If the expected move is greater than the actual move, options are overpriced, right? So that's what we did. So we did a bunch of things here, right? So we let the trade expire. We placed a stop loss at 2 times the credit we received. So again, what does that look like? What does that look like? If we collect $1.76, we place a stop loss if the value of those two options gets to 352. So we did that. And then we also purchased back the strangle, or again, the bet that the expected move is greater than the actual move for 50% of the credit we received. Right? So again, if we collected $1.76, 50% of the credit received is just 88 cents. So that we did. So we already saw the results of that. But we then took it a step further. Now what we said was we bracketed everything by high volatility and all occurrences. So again, we've seen in the past that it's really advantageous for us to place this bet on the expected move being greater than the actual move when the expected move is greater than average, right? So we bracketed these 3 trades to all occurrences and when volatility is high. And then again, just like we did in the last time, we calculated how many days we were in the trade and P&L per day. That should say per day. So here are the results. Here's the game changer. Slow down. Let's start from the left. Again, the first column right here is conventional wisdom. If you sell a 16 delta call and a 16 delta put, you should be right 68% of the time. The stock market, quote unquote, what they say, financial media, is that it's a zero-sum game. One guy makes money, one guy loses money, one girl makes money, one girl loses money, and it all comes out in the wash. So you average about $0 per day because you make no money. However, because options are overpriced because the expected move is greater than the actual move, we were right just by placing this trade and holding it until expiration 81% of the time, right? And the reason for that is because right around 80% of the time, the expected move is greater than the actual move. We made about $41 per trade. We held this trade till expiration, so we made about 82 cents per day. Big improvement. But what we showed you before is if we just place these trades, which is about 20% of the time when the expected move is greater than the average, and again, there's going to be a lot of ways in this course in Market Hero to show you exactly how to find that. But if we did it, we write 88% of the time. 88% of the time, we made about $85 per trade. We did hold this to expiration, so we were in the trade for 50 days. However, we made double, about $1.69 per day just by doing it at the right time. But then everyone's like, no, 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 you have to cut your losses and let your winners run. So what we did was we put a stop loss when the credit received reached 2 times. So again, think of it this way. We collect $1.76. When the value of those two options got to $3.52, we bought back the trade because, again, we don't want our losses to get too big, right? We want to cut our losses and let our winners run. So we were right. We made about $31 per trade. We were in the trade a little bit less. The reason we were in the trade a little bit less was because we hit our stop loss in some cases a lot quicker than 50 days. But we still made about 58 cents per day, which isn't terrible. This is still a profitable strategy, or just has been a profitable strategy every day for the last 27 years. But now we want to try out that strategy when we execute it when the expected move is greater than average. And again, we call that high volatility. So rather than being right 74% of the time, we're right 82% of the time. Rather than making 31 bucks a trade, we make about $53 a trade. Rather than being in the trade about 41 days, we're in the trade 36 days. And we make almost 3 times as much per day, which is really the number we should be looking at here. That's a really, really big deal, guys. That shows you the value of selling or making bets that the expected move is going to be greater than the actual move when the expected move is greater than average. Remember, if we do it every day, we make 82 cents per day. However, if we do it at the right time, we make double that. With a stop loss, we make about 58 cents per day. But if we do it with a stop loss when the expected move is greater than average, we're right more, and we make about 3 times more money. Now, here's where the millionaires are created. Here's where the market heroes are created. Here is where the money managers are created. Here it is. If we place the trade and just buy it back for 50% of the credit we receive. So again, if we collect $1.76, we want to buy it back if it ever gets to 88 cents. And if it never gets to 88 cents, we're just going to let it expire. We're right 90% of the time. So a lot of people go, Steven, how can you be right 81% of the time if you let it expire? And if you manage it back, where again, we're managing our winners and letting our losses run, how can you be right 90% of the time? Well, we just talked about it, the probability of touch. So there's a 50, it doubles your chances of making money, and it cuts your risk in half because again, probability of touch is 2 times the probability of expiring, right? So your probability of expiring is 81% here. We can't go over 100, but pretty much halfway there between 100 and 81 is 90%. So the probability of touching is 2 times the probability of expiring. So that's all it is. Now, you make about 25 bucks per trade. However, you're only in the trade for 19 days. You make $1.32 per day. But here's where it gets sick nasty. If we place this trade when the expected move is greater than average and buy it back for 50% of the credit we received, we're right 94% of the time. We make about $48 per trade, which isn't a huge number. However, we're in the trade for only 17 days on average. And what's even better is we go to about $2.83 profit per day. That's when it gets really, really amazing. If you don't understand the gravity of what you just saw, you have to watch this again, or you have to email me, or we have to jump on a call, one of those things. If you don't understand the gravity of what we are showing you right here, I don't know what to tell you. But again, conventional wisdom says, hey, if you sell a 16 delta call and a 16 delta put, you're betting on the expected move, right? That should be right 68.2% of the time. And because the stock market is a zero-sum game, It all comes out in the wash, right? It all comes out in the wash. So you're right for $0 and you're in the trade for 50 days. But because the expected move about 80% of the time is overstated to the actual move, placing this bet makes you a winner 81% of the time. Not bad. But then we took it up a notch and we said, well, it takes 4 times faster for the expected move to come back down to reality, which is average. And if options prices are priced off their expected move, it takes 4 times faster for options prices to decrease to their average when the expected move is greater than average. Again, we call that high volatility. So if you make the bet that the expected move is greater than the actual move, when the expected move is greater than average, you're right 88% of the time for $1.69 per day. That's some crazy stuff. And then we took it all the way a step further and said, what if we buy it back? Now we're right 94% of the time, and we're only in the trade, guys, for 17 days. That's a third of the amount of time if we just held it to expiration. And we make $2.83. We make 50% more profits when we manage our winners and let our losers run. So that's a huge, huge deal. Now, a lot of you are probably going to run out there and say, okay, I got to do this. I'm just going to do this all day, every day. That's not what we should be doing. It's just to prove a point in terms of the actual statistics and the data around this. We shouldn't be doing this every single day. However, this is a really big deal, guys. The expected move is greater than average, which means options are overpriced because the expected move is what options are priced off of, and the actual move is what options settle to. So because of that, options are overpriced. That occurrence happens about 80% of the time, right? So making a bet that the expected move is going to be greater than average makes you profitable about 80% of the time. Totally makes sense. But it takes 4 times faster for options prices to decrease when the expected move is greater than average, because it takes the expected move about 4 times faster to get back down to the average as compared to when the expected move is lower than average. So if we place the bet on the expected move being greater than the actual move, when the expected move is greater than average, it's even more profitable because we make money when the value of those options decrease. And then we took it a step further and said, cutting your losses and letting your winners run is this bullshit. It doesn't work. And in fact, what if we try the opposite, which is getting rid of your winners and letting your losses run? And as it turns out, now we're right 94% of the time for $2.83 per day, and we're only in the trade for a third of the time. So you can do 3 of these trades. You can do 3 of these trades, 3 of these trades, while you have 1 of just letting it expire. I mean, how amazing is that? How amazing is that? You can do 3 of these trades in which you're right 94% of the time for $2.83 per day if you just manage your winners as opposed to just letting them go. How amazing is that? So hold the phone, guys. Don't go out there and start just clicking buttons right now. There's a couple more things. Our job is to make sure that the probabilities that we see on this page come out to be true at the end of the day. So what we're going to talk about in the next few lessons is how to make sure that if we're supposed to be right 94% of the time, we are. And if we're supposed to make money at the rate of $2.83 per day, that we are. So I will see you on the next lesson.